E.O. Moore's Elizabeth Valley Railroad appeared in a lot of model railroading publications in the late 50s and into the 1960s. One example is this particular one. It might be a little difficult to see here, but I've included links to all the photos which are at my blog in the description section. So this particular photo is half of his railroad, and you can see that there's basically a lake and a loop and a bridge, and what you can't see is a big mountain that's off to the right here. So this appeared in Kalmbach's classic book H.O. Primer, and the Moore picture appeared in all of its editions. There were actually a couple pictures. There was even this this little night scene of downtown Elizabethton. But one thing that was missing from all the magazine accounts was a track plan of his layout. Never appeared. He used the layout for staging photos and running his trains, but he never published a track plan. Closest I ever came to seeing one was this photo of the layout during construction that I found in his archives while I was researching my E.O. Moore book. So the layout, I think, was started probably in the mid-1950s, maybe somewhat earlier. I'm guessing 52 or 53, something like that. But it gives you a pretty good idea in this photograph of what's going on. So you can see here's the lake down here, penciled out, that we saw in the last photo. You can see some of the track that's going to go in the mountainous area up here. And Pluto makes a guest appearance. But this is all I had. And it's a pretty good representation of the track, except for in here. It's kind of obscured about what's going on in there. So a few years went by, and just out of luck, a blog reader contacted me and said that he had a postcard that E.O. Moore sent him, and on the postcard was printed this track plan of his Elizabeth Valley Railroad. And I found out later that E.O. Moore had a stack of these postcards printed up, and when anybody sent him a letter and asked him for his track plan, he just sent him a postcard, and it had the track plan on it. And he wished them all well if they tried to build it. And you can see here it's a pretty complicated thing. I apologize for the rough image. The reader who generously sent this my way sent me a sort of a very rough photograph of the postcard taken with a rather old digital camera. This is the image that's been enhanced a lot, but once again, if you want to study it in detail, a copy of this is at my blog. But one of the most important things it does is it clarifies what's going on down here. You can see that there's a switch there and goes into a loop. I started this layout, I think it was 2016 or 2017, soon after I was able to figure out what the track plan really looked like. The track itself is Pico, as well as the switches. In scale, it's built mainly on a 2-foot by 3-foot artist panel, which I had to extend over on the left hand side a bit with some foam so that I had enough base to build the mountain. But this is where I keep it, in the corner of the workshop, hanging on the wall. Gosh, it's been here for almost 2 or 3 years. Not a good thing. I stopped work on it because I was kind of in a dilemma about how to continue on it and what I wanted out of it. And so I just set it aside, hung it up on the wall here until recently. So I'm going to try and take it off the wall, and hopefully I won't trip over the camera at the same time. So here goes. I'll just try and lift it off. Okay, I'm gonna run one of my locomotives over some of this track, and I say some of this track because I've divided it up into electrical blocks, but I haven't connected the electrical blocks into a control panel to turn it into a fully functional model railroad layout. So for purposes of running the train, I've put some jumper wires on, and so that I can at least run a segment of the track for the video. So fingers crossed. Let's see if it'll run. Okay, I'm going to back it up, get it out of here. Let's see if we can back it up at least. Oh, there we go. So it's not much to see right now, but it has potential. You can see that a lot of the curves are quite tight. The grades are pretty steep, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to flip it upside down and show you the underside, the electrical part where the business happens, and we'll take it from there. So this is one tricky layout when it comes to wiring, and if you remember the track plan, it's just it's a jumble. But it becomes a little more understandable when I realize that what it actually is, it's a classic dog bone layout that's been folded over on itself. So what I did was I made a schematic diagram where I unfolded the dog bone. So over here on the left, this is basically the upper layer of track. So this is one end of the dog bone, and that's this piece right here. That's that. And so this down here in the green is the other part of the dog bone. And so when you take this part and then twist it and lay it over top in the mountainous area, you get this dog bone, which has been folded and twisted on top of itself. That's the green line in the diagram. To make things even more complicated, you've got these what I call short circuit tracks. You've got this piece in here that I put in orange, which is this piece over here, and you've got another one over here, which is this piece over here, and you got this little stub siding over on the side. So you've got a dog bone that you've got to wire up, and then you've got these short circuit tracks to get yourself around the dog bone. So what I did was I divided this up into blocks using classical dog bone wiring for part of it, and then putting in some extra isolation for these other parts. So it's complicated, and the curious thing is that E.O. Moore was a guy who said he never really liked the wiring part of a layout, and yet he's got this very complicated layout and an equally complicated wiring diagram. So here's where I left it last time. I'm gonna pull back a little bit. So basically I've just run wires to the various blocks and got all the wires in place for the dog bone, and I left it this part because I'm not a big wiring expert either. And I started to wonder, well, what am I going to do with this thing? It's been staring at me on the wall for a few years now, and I thought, what I'll do is I'll finish the wiring on it so that it becomes a usable little layout, and I'll just clean up the other side, the scenery side. Not really scenic it, but at least have it not look like a mishmash of track and pink foam and white areas, just make it a little more consolidated. And then it'll at least be a presentable piece that you can see what the Elizabeth Valley sort of looked like back in its day. So anyway, it'll probably take me a good year at the way I work to get this wrapped up. But as I make progress or hit milestones, I'll post some update videos so you can see what's what. But that's it for now. That's where the layout is.